So I just wanted to kind of talk about some random stuff that's been on my mind. First off, I want to thank everybody for subscribing to the channel. If you haven't already, please do. Just hit 200 this morning, Monday morning, beginning of May. And that's really, really exciting because I have had a whole lot of fun, but also done a fair amount of work to get there and also spread the word and also try to make interesting content. I have a ton of footage that is on my computer now and on my hard drives that I'll be using to make content when I'm in the United States, because typically when I'm in the United States, there's not as much fun or exciting things going on, and most of the content would just be, okay, I worked today, and this is what I'm going to watch on TV after work because I'm too tired to do a whole lot, and that kind of content's just not really any fun. So yeah, it's much more fun for me to make content while I'm traveling, and certainly the growing subscriber number definitely tells me that I'm going the right direction with my content, that people do find it interesting and worthwhile to watch, and I'm going to continue to work at it, continue to try to get better at it, and learn new techniques and get new equipment and improve my skill set. So yeah, I thought today I'd talk a bit about nostalgia because for some reason it's hitting me hard right now, and I don't exactly, I can't 100% put my finger on it. And yeah, why don't we talk about that, walk a bit, and maybe I can learn something, maybe you can learn something. And yeah, let's start walking. So we're here in Cusco. We're away from the historic district. This is more of where the people that live here, actual Peruvian people, live, work, eat, and do things. So you're not going to have the cobblestone sort of street vibe you have in the historic city. But I'm cool with that. The prices are lower here. The people are, I think, more laid back. Yeah, it's all around a good experience. And I think if I lived in Cusco, I'd probably live further out than here, to be honest. Like, this is really convenient for me not having a car here, and not 100% knowing my way around yet. But I would opt for something even further out, closer to the mall, just because the prices are lower and there's more locals, and I feel like I could get a bigger place for my money, and also something you'll come to find too if you spend a significant amount of time here in Cusco is that the old city vibes are much more touristy. And so typically if you're going to stay here for a few months, maybe even a month or two, then you may get tired of those tourist vibes. There's only so many times you can go to Plaza de Armas and it's a new experience. It's a beautiful place, it's a wonderful place, but I imagine you're going to get tired of going there every day if you try to do that for like a month. So yeah, like I said, further out, I think the neighborhood near the mall is called Magisterial. That might be kind of an area where I stay just because I find it to be convenient to have that one-stop shop. Whereas if you're in the older, more historical or traditional part of the city, then you're not going to have the one-stop shop as much. It's going to be more like, okay, I go here to get this, I go there to get that, or you just take a cab out to that part of town and then take a cab back or the bus, depending on what your preference is. But I like to be able to just walk and handle that rather than worrying about trying to find a vehicle there and a vehicle back. So as far as nostalgia goes and like what sort of triggered it for me, I don't know what happened. All of a sudden I just like psychologically got stuck like 15 years ago. And I don't know exactly what prompted it, but I've been kind of reflecting a lot, which is something I do when I travel and I'm by myself. Just kind of reflecting on the experiences that have led me to where I am. And I think part of it too is wishing my friends were here. That's kind of a tough part about traveling, is that naturally most of my friends are working or don't have the time otherwise to come on this trip, and I've tried to invite folks, and some people's plans fall through. So, yeah, I guess it could be a little bit of a throwback feeling since I don't have Spanish, and it is at times challenging to connect with people here. Like, I was kind of seeing this local chick, and at one point she was just like, "Oh, why can't you understand me?" And yeah, like I don't blame her for that. That's like a normal sensation to have. I know a lot of people here that stay for more than just like 4 or 5 days. They're gonna know Spanish, but I don't yet. I am working on it, but I guess I got kind of stuck in my head, and I started thinking about like the times that got me into traveling, even if just to the city. When I was younger, so 15 years ago, let's get into kind of what music goes along with this time period in my life. So I was listening to a lot of like screamo music and post-hardcore and really angry music. And I had legit reason to be angry. My mom passing away and not really knowing my dad and having to deal with my grandmother's instability. But so I got lost in this angry music, and it really, I think, helped me cope in a lot of ways with the situation that I had to experience, the situation I had to go through. And so I started listening to some of that music, even though I couldn't. It's been in the last, I would say, 10 years since I kind of listened to more EDM-oriented music, or even, I'd say, 7 or 8 years. I just couldn't listen to that other music. I don't know what it was. It would just, I don't know if it was trigger the feelings of anger or frustration or what. But more recently, as I've started to get close to 30, I felt less and less reliant on other people. And I'm not really sure what the positive in that is. I think one thing that can make it tough when you're traveling, at least as far as my experiences go, you see people and families, and you kind of reflect on your own or lack thereof in my case. And so the sense of community that I felt over the years, I built that from music and from live music, and music's really connected me to a lot of people. But right now, it kind of hit me like I was at a concert a couple days ago in Urubamba, and it hit me. I was like, this is the first time I've been to a concert in like over a year. And that was the part of this that kind of, I think, finally got to me, is I thought for a while, like, oh, this isn't a big deal. I could deal with this, whatever, the whole lockdown situation. And then I, like, kind of woke up the other day and realized, wow, I really overcame a lot to get to this point. But what did I lose in the process? What did I give up to harden myself to be able to handle going around the world? Because the thing that keeps coming up to me with me and some American people, the few non-immigrants I know, I'd say most of my friends are first or second gen immigrant. They're like, oh, how could you get on a plane and go do that? Oh my God, it's so dangerous. Oh, as soon as you get there, you're going to get kidnapped. You're going to walk off the plane and they're going to kidnap you. And first off, nobody's paying my ransom. So good luck to anybody that would like to kidnap me. You are not going to get anything, because there is nobody that will around that will put up. I mean, I know there's this perception that all Americans are like celebrities or something like that, but you're barking up the wrong tree. That's probably why I don't mind going to bad neighborhoods. But I suggest you not, because you probably have more in the way of interpersonal relationships to lose from some kind of situation happening like that. Honestly, like, I would probably laugh if somebody tried to kidnap me, and be like, okay, you're going to spend a whole lot of time, not making progress. But as far as nostalgia goes, my mom passed when I was 8, and my dad disappeared when I was 10. And it's, naturally that's going to cause some tough times, and if for nothing else, a lack of people that are looking out for you. So I really got lost in music. I was on a lot of these defunct sites, like you're probably familiar with, LimeWire and the like, and downloading tons and tons of really good music that really helped me through those tough times. And so I transitioned from going from listening to it on the computer to doing as much as I could to get to concerts at Rocketown, and having a lot of fun doing that, going to different live music events. And it was hard because my grandma really hated everything I enjoyed, and it's kind of sad, but I'll talk about it more on a Patreon type thing. I don't want to break YouTube's rules and get kicked off, but yeah, it just as I got to be an adult, I was still into live music, different styles, but I just thinking back, even as late as like 2013, 2014, to the kind of music that I would go and see and concert. I'd travel around the Midwest after I had seen a lot of what Nashville had, and Nashville continues to have good music, but I grew up in that scene, and so like after 5, 6, 7 years of seeing the bands perform, bands come and go, it was important for me to get out and to see other types of places and other concerts and different styles of music, more electronic. As I got older, I got more into electronic music. But yeah, I've been listening to that screamo music, and I used to think how terrible that music is. And now I'm getting older. I'm like, man, these young people were doing something awesome. I guess I'm probably close to the age of a lot of these bands, when I was listening to them. But man, the heart and the soul and the transparency and talking about hard times and the realities of growing up in suburban America, seeing people, their parents split up and seeing people have to move away because of the '08, downturn. I think the '08 downturn really extended the life of some of the music, because it was like, we had 9/11 in 2001. I was in third, and then right after that came the 7 years later, the '08 crash and the housing crash, and it just really was not an easy time to grow up, and a lot of accumulated problems seemed to hit our generation, and it's just it's strange. It's really strange, because that's one of the ways I don't relate to my immigrant friends. Not that they didn't have hard times in that era, but I think that the music that came out of that era, the suburban wasteland life, going to your dying mall, it's a really bizarre sort of thing that I think is hard to remember without reflecting on the music that was popular from that era. Maybe part of it is seeing the popularity of anime here too. In Colombia and in Peru, anime is really popular. I'm not really sure what spurred that, because the creation of anime in Japan is related to some really unique circumstances, but maybe, that Japanification thing is just happening in the U.S. Maybe it's happening in other countries around the world. It's really good entertainment. The reason I mention all of this is anime was kind of created because the Japanese work environment is frankly pretty oppressive, and so a lot of people find themselves working long hours and not really having much time for themselves. And Japan is an expensive country to live in, so it's not like the average worker is really living a life of luxury. So they want escapism. They want to feel like they are the hero. Of course, dating is not that fun in Japan, and for most people, like men and women. And so, you have this animated entertainment that has dialogue and storylines that help the viewer to escape. And so really even before live music, I think that was my escape was really watching a lot of anime content, series like Inuyasha, Big O, Gundam, Zoids, Rurouni Kenshin. All of these were series I enjoyed. Of course, we can't forget Cowboy Bebop. And there was this evolution where I went from being super into anime and video games into the angry music, and from the angry music into electronic music. And now I am back into rap and hip hop, which is what I was into, kind of in between. That was like how I kind of moved from the angry music to the electronic music, because rap can be quite angry, but also has more electronic influence than say like double bass, the signature from that kind of aggressive music. Also the screaming vocals. Perhaps I'm getting into the rap music too because it reminds me of that era in my life. Too is when I was younger, I couldn't wait to be an adult. I couldn't wait to have freedom, to be able to go to all the concerts I wanted, do everything I wanted to do. I just thought that being an adult would be so much better, that everything about being an adult would be better than being a young person. And no, not really. It's a lot of responsibility, and I feel like bizarrely more isolated as an adult than I did when I was younger. I'm not really sure 100% if it could be attributed to one thing. Obviously not having really any family contributes to that, but for some reason I thought, oh wow, we're all in this community, we're all in Nashville going to Rocketown, we're all in Nashville going to Exit Inn, we're all going to 12th and Porter, we're all going to Mercy Lounge, we're all going to these different venues. Oh, pardon. And yeah, we're going to these different venues, and it's going to be like this forever. The same crowd is going to be able to go to the concerts and enjoy the same music and hang out a lot. And I can't wait, for this weekend, because there's going to be a big concert. And it seems like the pandemic kind of like pushed that along, but it seems like now everybody's in like different places. Like when I think about Nashville, my hometown, and I do consider the city of Nashville my hometown. I want to be clear. I was born downtown and lived within 15 minutes, 20 minutes of downtown my entire life. In some cases, 5 or 10 minutes. And then toward the end of my stint in Nashville, I lived in Uptown near the park, near the Centennial Park. And that was, I really took that for granted. That's part of, I think, is what's causing my nostalgia kick, is I really took a lot of those times for granted, and out of ignorance just didn't really appreciate how special it was to be at 13, 14 years old, going to concerts with these super talented musicians, and then doing that for like 10 years. I think part of me feels like a lot older than 28 because some of these experiences I've had, I feel like a lot of other people stretch them out and do them more responsibly. Like they go to one concert a month, or they party one time a month or something like that. And for me, it was just every single day for years of going to concerts and looking up new artists and just learning about how the whole thing works. And I think that's part of what got me into sales too. Was one of the things that I thought was really cool is the bands would help each other out and work each other's merch booths at Rocketown. So you'd go to the merch booth and you'd see some other artists that you like helping out their friends to make some money, because even at that time, artists were not making almost anything from their record sales. So the majority of artists that I followed, they made the majority of their money from merch. So they didn't have as much digital distribution as sophisticated as they have now. So they were relying on selling shirts and different pants and jackets and things like that. And so I tried to support them as much as I could in that era. And yeah, I'm going to go back and get rid of a bunch of my stuff and consider where I'm going to be moving overseas. Of course, my first priority is a software engineering job in Cambodia. That would get that title on my resume. But if I can't get that software engineering job, I am considering an extended trip to Eastern Europe. This would include most likely Belarus, Ukraine. Well, not Ukraine, actually. I don't know why I just said Ukraine. Belarus, Serbia, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan. I think that would be an interesting new thing, new flavor. I haven't been to Europe yet, so that would be the fourth continent for me. North America being first, then Asia, now South America. And that seems kind of like a cool thing to be able to say, that I visited over half the continents if I make that Eastern Europe trip. And I think I'm just also looking for that post-Soviet aesthetic. I've heard a lot about it, read a lot about it online, but it includes sort of the styles from Russia and then the greater Soviet Empire or regime. I don't know what exactly term would be appropriate there, but in that case, I think it would just kind of match some of the thoughts that have been in my mind lately, and the idea that, okay, I'm about to spend a long time working, and then one day my body will give out on me, and that'll be the end. And that sounds pretty dark, but ironically, reflecting on some of the happier, simpler, rather times in my life, I think it's a nice escape. And I think that exploring some of these post-Soviet eras that are in sort of a semi-permanent economic depression might help me feel more gratitude. That's something that I've enjoyed about traveling Latin America, especially with the crisis in Venezuela, is encountering people that have had to rebuild their lives from that through no fault of their own. And it starts to make me understand that me, with my unique situation of not, or well, what I thought to be a unique situation of not having family, actually is not that unique. And there's millions of Venezuelans that would like to leave as well. I think it's at the highest poverty rate in the world at 91%. So certainly I'm not the only person suffering or maybe even thinking of a better time. I imagine there's probably quite a few older Venezuelans, middle-aged Venezuelans that remember a better time in that country's history. I'm walking to the mall now. I want to see what they have down there. It's a sunny day, as you can tell. This time I brought my face shield, so you have to bring a face shield to go to the mall here. You also have to bring a face shield to fly. So this time I'm headed down there with the shield, and I'll be able to walk around the mall and look around. I'm not going to be able to film in there simply because that's typically against the security rules, but it'll be interesting to see what they have here. I know some of the stores I do recognize. They have, of course, Adidas here. They have Nike here. But many of the stores I won't recognize. I'm sure they have some local Peruvian stores selling alpaca gear and things like that. But yeah, it's a different vibe here for sure. Maybe also the nostalgia hit me because people who are here are quiet and respectful of personal space and understanding of introversion and being quiet. And I feel like also the lack of tourists here helps with that anyway, because you don't have an artificially large group of really outgoing people. It's basically locals at this point. If you do notice in some of the walking videos I've been doing around here, there's really very few. I want to say I've seen, outside of my hostel that I stayed at, outside of the hostel, I've seen maybe a half dozen expats in the last 10 days. I will be asking Chef Singh about that. I do want to interview some expats, and at least one. I know that Malik has asked me to do that, and I don't have a problem with doing that at all. I think that was a really good idea. and something that I didn't think about before. Even though I watch expat interviews, I just never thought to do something like that. So shout out to you, Malik. I really appreciate you mentioning that. Really good idea. But yeah, through that music scene. By the way, I'm gonna jump around a lot. That's just my style. I do apologize if sometimes you aren't catching where I'm coming from. Let me know down in the comments if I jump around to the extent that you feel confused. I'll do my best to kind of connect the dots because my brain just goes in all different directions all the time. So yeah, looking back on that music scene, I remember my first girlfriend and had a lot of firsts through that music and through connecting with women that like that music and connecting with guy friends that like that music. Oh, we're carpooling and we're gonna all get together in a dude's car and we're gonna head down to the concert. And at the time, Nashville wasn't as much of a boom town, so you could get free parking. You might have to park kind of a sketchy weird area, but who cares? Like, you're at the show. It's time to have fun, and all that's gone now. With the pandemic, I've been trying to read up on concerts in Nashville. There's really not that many. I know it's going to come back steadily, but it's just, who knows when that's going to be, and who knows if that's going to really ever be the way it was before. Just the idea of not wearing masks in a big group. Like, I don't have a problem personally with the masks. I just remember going to concerts for 10 years, like a third of my life, with none of that, and being able to talk to people without a muffled voice. And yeah, I took for granted growing up in Nashville, and that's a big regret for me, is not fully appreciating that we grew up in one of the country's best music scenes, but with a small town vibe, without having to deal with the crap of living in Los Angeles or the crap of living in New York City. Nashville seems to be its own thing, and there wasn't as much superficial sort of attitudes as there are today. Like, you could go, like, I met so many of these artists and musicians out back behind the venue because they would just go hang out there and hang out with the fans, and it wasn't always this big, everybody's got to get in a big line to do a signing. They just go up to them. Like, I remember Derek Vincent Smith of the Acacia Strain, and I walked up to him as somebody that I thought was him, his friend that looks like him but is smaller in stature, and he's just joking with me and pretended to be Derek and all this and that. And then after a while, actual Derek Vincent Smith walked up, and dude's like well over 6 feet tall, so you definitely notice him when he walks up. And I was really curious, like, asking him, what's it like, you're touring with Christian bands? I always thought that was really, I wouldn't call it risque, but very, very interesting. That's something that I loved about Nashville, and I took for granted, he was saying, well, I might be doing some really anti-Christian things, and they're going to be up there screaming about Jesus, and it's cool. We're friends. Like, we don't have to have the same beliefs to be friends and to get along. And that's something that I always have felt, not always, I've much more recently felt like grateful for and appreciative of, is that we all came from all these different, odd backgrounds, arrangements, and situations, and yet in the city, we could all get along. We could all put aside our problems, disagreements, and fights, and get along. And maybe that seems less the case today. I don't know, but there's so many beautiful times I'll never forget, enjoying the vibrancy of that scene.